You walk with a steady pace through a paved road, and it seems like your journey will be quite boring, when suddenly a group of bandits attack you from all sides. Alright, wait a moment. We are like half a mile from the capital city, and we are on the main road to the capital city. Like, this road is surely patrolled all the time, and listen, they just attack you, okay? Right. Wait a moment. Do they have like better quality equipment, like an actual armor and better swords and crossbows? Because wait, guys, those might be bounty hunters or mercenaries. Because remember the jewel crafter? We shouldn't have messed with the jewel crafter. It's probably those mercenaries he sent after us, right? After what we did. No, they are just bandits. Oh, okay. So, what if they are bandits? Bandits. But first we need to address a very simple question. What the hell are bandits? They are a scam of society, and they usually operate outside of big population centers, and that is mostly because they are already known as criminals. Maybe they are banished, or maybe there is a big bounty on them, so they cannot just, chill in a local tavern like most small-time thieves can. You see, bandits appear in fantasy all the time, and they always look very similar to each other. You can pick any group of bandits from one fantasy setting and put a different group of bandits from a different fantasy setting, and they will usually look very, very similar to each other. And that is, quite frankly, pretty fucking boring. You always see common visual similarities, like low quality equipment, dirty look, very often a bandana around their face, and we see them mostly in forests or mountain paths. But what happens if you actually flesh out those groups of bandits? And there are three major principles that will make your bandit groups in your fantasy setting feel actually interesting and fleshed out. Purpose is the reason why they exist. It's basically making their existence make sense in the world that you are creating. So if you want your main characters, or your players if you're playing RPG, to encounter a bandit group in like one specific place, then think for a moment. Would that make sense for them to encounter bandits in this specific place? Is this area that they operate in actually infested with banditry? If yes, why? Bandits usually appear in places where there is chaos, either in remote places or not defended roads. They are criminals who can no longer be in bigger settlements. And bandits are also people. They don't spawn out of nowhere like NPCs in a video game. They came from some places and organized for some reason. So who are those bandits? Was there a major war that created chaos recently? Maybe there is a flood of refugees that came from a neighboring country because there was some conflict there, and those refugees were not taken care of, and so they turned to banditry, at least some of them. Let me give you an example of an actually well-designed bandit group in a fantasy setting. In classic World of Warcraft, we have the Kingdom of Stormwind. The capital city, that is also named Stormwind, was destroyed during a recent war. To rebuild the city, the kingdom recruited the Stonemason Guild. If you want to know more how to world build guilds, I made a video about it like 2-3 weeks ago. The Stonemason Guild managed to rebuild the city very rapidly and very effectively, but now the politicians and nobles started to have issues with them. There was a lot of political struggle. Some said that they demanded too much money. Others argued that the guild was supposed to do the work for free. The story is actually much more complicated than that. It involves a political intrigue and magic, but it's not that important, so we will move on. Anyway, at the end, the Council of the Kingdom decided to not pay the guild. As you may imagine, they were not happy about it. A violent revolt started, and the queen, who actually supported the guild, came out to the balcony to speak to the revolting guild members. But unfortunately, she was hit by a stray rock and died. This, of course, made the situation even worse. The guild was forcefully disbanded by the kingdom, and the revolt was brutally crushed. But many members of the guild managed to escape the city and into the arid land of Westfall. Now, angry and bitter, outlawed, disbanded, they started calling themselves the Defias Brotherhood. Since they were still not paid, they decided that, well, they will take the payment back, no matter what it takes. And so they started to attack local farms and merchant convoys, and not only that, they started to allow anyone who felt resentment for the kingdom into their ranks. And those were mostly, very often, criminals and vagabonds. And so now the once respected leader of the guild, Edwin Van Cleef, was no longer a respected stonemason and labourer. He was now the leader of the Defias Brotherhood Bandits. And so that is the backstory for a pretty generic group of bandits in World of Warcraft. You see how a simple backstory actually made them fleshed out. Like, now you know why they exist, what is their motivation. It is a bit of a tragic story. You can actually feel some sympathy for them. And they are no longer generic bandits. They are now a group of people with their own story and their own motivation. Depth is what makes them unique amongst each other. Let's say there is 3 groups of bandits competing in one specific area. How the hell do I differentiate between them? Sure, you can follow the first principle and create a backstory for them and the reason why they exist, but what if I am just a normal citizen in your fantasy world? I don't know their story, maybe I don't even care, I'm just a normal merchant who just travel, and I know that there are 3 bandits groups. How do I differentiate between them? What makes the Grass Shivs, the Foxes, and the Bartolomeo Brotherhood different from each other? What you do, you create a culture for them. You create hierarchy for them, maybe they have some kind of customs, maybe some tactics that are specific just for them. Maybe they feel some level of relationship between them, the way they move and the way they attack. Also, equipment. This one is a bit tricky because bandits, they are not usually organized enough to wear the same uniforms. Also, why would they care for that, right? But there should be at least some level of recognizability. Let's take the Foxes as an example. You can have this group of bandits be a group of highwaymen. They are a tribe from the mountains that for some reason moved to the flatlands. Their clothes and equipment will be easy to distinguish because they will wear their traditional clothes that are mostly made for colder weather. Maybe some trinkets that are characteristic for their culture. And as for the weapons, it will be mostly old-type firearms and tools like axes, hammers, and big cleavers. And as for their name, they will have a fox tail attached to their belts or to their caps as a symbol of belonging. Or, for example, you can have a bandit group that is called the Stags, and they are well organized, they have very good equipment, and they wear uniforms. And that is because they are a unit of soldiers who fought in a war 2 years ago, but they fought on the losing side, so their side was completely obliterated, and now they as a group, they are outlawed, and they don't have a place to call home, so they turn to banditry just to survive. And their name, the Stags, is because they wear a white stag in the middle of their uniform, because that used to be a crest of a noble house that they served under. You see, we made 2 groups of bandits feel a bit different from each other without that much effort put into it. Interconnection is less about the bandits themselves and more about how the world around them react to their activities. Let me explain. If there's a bandit group running rampant somewhere, this should have consequences. People in your story should be aware of that problem, and those bandits should impact their lives. So when you introduce a group of bandits in your story, you should be wary about the fact how other factions will react to them and their activities on the roads. Of course, if those bandits are just a small fry that, they are very disorganized and they operate in a very remote area, in some kind of backwater region, then sure, nobody would really care about them. However, if one every 3 merchant convoys disappear because of those bandits in a road to the capital city. Well, now we're talking. Now everyone will be interested because they do a lot of damage to the economy of the city. It makes the roads very dangerous. Who are those people? Why the militia didn't, remove them yet? Something maybe strange happens. Maybe they are very effective for some reason. Maybe there are people in the city that use that as an opportunity. Or maybe now the criminal underground of that city will grow because they connect to the bandits and they sell the stolen goods in the black market inside the capital city. The local merchant guild will surely be very bothered by that. They will try to push as much as they can the government to do something about it. But maybe there is someone in the nobles that have a beef with the guild, and that person would really not want that to be solved anytime soon. So that noble might actually advocate against doing anything drastic with those bandits because, well, they are not that big of a deal, right? That way, connecting everything and having consequences of those actions, you can actually foreshadow certain events, you can create a crisis as a central point in your story. You can do a lot with that to cater to your specific goal as a writer. And so, if you want to wrestle deeper with those ideas, I have a writing mastermind that I will be starting, where I take a handful of people and work with them to help them expand their stories and their universes, make them more cohesive, logical, and more immersive. So if that's something you might be curious about, there will be a link in the description down below. Something that I see quite often in RPG campaigns, video games, and less so but still in fantasy books, is that whenever the bandits are attacking the main characters of a specific story, they always do that in a balanced way. There's not that many of them. Even if they will outnumber the main protagonist, they will not outnumber them too much, So you just end up throwing enough of those bandits to feel a bit threatened, but not enough to completely overpower their prey. However, bandits are not stupid, and if they were stupid, they would very quickly cease to exist. Bandits usually pick easy targets. They would very rarely be bothered by anything that look even remotely dangerous, unless there is something big to gain from that. And when they actually find a suitable target, they will not attack that with, a balanced measure. They will try to outnumber and overpower that target and, prepare a very solid ambush, preferably without anyone dying and threatening to get their cargo to them. Next one is spawning like NPCs in a video game. Very oftentimes, whenever I see a bandit encounter in a fantasy story, it feels like it's actually scripted and not a logical conclusion of a in-universe choices of consequences of both groups that, encounter each other. To make it feel more immersive and realistic, it's good to set up a pattern of attack of those bandits for them to, make sense to attack your target that you want to make them attack in your story. You don't need to explain everything to your audience. You just need to create it just for yourself as a side note. Believe me, people who don't really notice those kind of things, they will feel that there is a pattern to it. We people are usually good at finding common patterns, even if we don't see them directly 100%. That will also make them feel like a faction made out of people who have some kind of plan and they think things through. And what pattern of attack can they have, you may ask? Well, it can be anything. Let's say they choose one specific target. Maybe they attack in a specific time frame, so let's say only during the night. Or maybe they have an observation spot that is hidden and you don't need to mention it. However, they see only one specific part of the road from that observation spot, and whenever they see someone there, then they attack them. And as I said, you don't need to explain that. If you have genuine fans of your story, they will actually start to think, what is the logical reason why they were attacked? And the last one is preservation of life. Make those bandits actually want to live. You can do that by making them more careful during the attack. Imagine if you are this kind of bandit. How would you attack your prey without exposing yourself too much? And whenever that bandit group is losing a combat, bandits want easy money. If that easy money is no longer easy, then they should run away. Remember that those are bandits. They are not motivated by duty to their kingdom or honor or anything like this. If something is, going wrong, they are running away. Anyway, I hope that you took a lot of value from that world building guide and that now your bandit factions will not suck and be actually interesting. And again, if you want to improve your writing or your world building, you can check the description down below. I'll catch you in the next one. See you when I see you.